What's really going on, y'all, and welcome back to the couch, because tonight the whole Blueface and Chrisean Rock circus just cracked wide open in a way nobody in this comment section is ready for. If you thought the Ronnie Doe chapter was buried, if you thought that paternity mess was dead in the water, if you thought Blueface finally learned his lesson after all the jail time, all the courtroom drama, all the on-camera slapboxing, you were dead wrong, because what just leaked out of Miami this past weekend rewrites the entire story. And by the end of this video you are going to understand exactly why Blueface is one bad decision away from either a jail cell or a chalk outline, and why Chrisean Rock has become the most feared name in that entire Bompton circle. Stay with me, because I'm about to walk you through every layer of this thing, and I promise you the last piece of information I drop tonight is going to have this comment section on fire. Let's set the table first, because a lot of the new followers rolling in here don't have the full timeline, and without the timeline none of this hits the way it should. Back in February of 2026, a young man named Karen, better known to the internet as Ronnie Doe, was found shot and unresponsive in the streets of Baltimore. Ronnie Doe was Chrisean Rock's ex-boyfriend. Ronnie Doe was the man who, right before he took his last breath, was scheduled to walk into a courtroom and finally take a real DNA test to determine whether or not he was the biological father of the baby the world knows as Chrisean Jr. That test never happened. Ronnie Doe never made it to that courtroom. And within hours of Ronnie Doe's name hitting the timeline as deceased, Chrisean Rock was already online with what she called a paternity test, waving a piece of paper in the camera, claiming Ronnie Doe was not the father of her son. Right there, in that one moment, is where this entire story stopped being gossip and started being something a whole lot heavier. Now here's the part that has the streets buzzing tonight, because a source that runs deep in that Baltimore circle finally sat down in front of a camera and started talking, and what he said was so cold it froze the whole conversation. He confirmed on record that yes, Ronnie Doe did in fact get murdered, and no, it was not random, and no, it was not some street beef gone sideways. He said, and I want you to hear this clearly, that if he told you what he really thought happened out there, it don't look too good, and that certain people that we all know are wrapped up in it. He said he fed that boy. He said they were like family. He said he loved Ronnie Doe, and he watched Ronnie Doe love him back, and now Ronnie Doe is gone, and the same girl who was arguing with Ronnie Doe on camera, the same girl who had Ronnie Doe running up on her in public, the same girl who was about to be locked into a paternity test with Ronnie Doe, is the same girl who is right back on Blueface's arm in Miami acting like none of it ever happened. That is not a coincidence. That is a pattern, and tonight we're going to lay every piece of that pattern out on the table. Before I go any further, hit that subscribe button, because there is a specific update coming at the very end of this video that I have not seen a single other channel report on yet, and if you miss it, you are going to be the last one in your group chat to know. Tap the bell, drop a comment with the word justice in all caps if you believe Ronnie Doe's family deserves answers, and let's get right back into it. Chrisean Rock did something in the days after Ronnie Doe's death that even her most loyal supporters cannot explain. She logged on to Zeus, she pulled up a document, and she presented it to the internet as a DNA test. Except here is the problem. That document was dated back in May of 2020. That document was dated months before Chrisean Jr. was even born. That document could not have been a paternity test on the baby, because the baby did not exist yet in the form the test would have required. What that document actually appears to be, according to people who have looked at it line by line, is a name change filing, an administrative paper where Chrisean Rock was attempting to change the child's surname from Malone over to Porter, listing the alleged father on record while the actual man in question was not even present to confirm anything. So Chrisean Rock took a routine surname paper, waved it in front of millions of viewers, and rebranded it as scientific proof that Ronnie Doe was not the father of Chrisean Jr. And the timing of that rebrand is what makes the whole thing chilling, because it happened within days of Ronnie Doe being found dead in a Baltimore street. Blueface himself has finally been talking about this on stream, and Blueface is not a man known for holding his tongue. Blueface pointed at that document, Blueface pointed at the May 2020 date, and Blueface said out loud what a lot of people had been whispering in private, which is that the paper Chrisean Rock was flashing was never a DNA test at all, that it was a legal maneuver dressed up as a paternity result, and that Chrisean Rock had every reason to make the internet believe Ronnie Doe was cleared. Because with Ronnie Doe deceased there was no living man left to walk into a lab and prove otherwise. That is the thread that keeps tightening around this whole story, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Let's rewind for the folks who are just now catching up, because you need the full picture to understand why the Baltimore source's testimony hits so hard. Chrisean Rock and Blueface have been the internet's favorite disaster couple for years now. They have brawled on live streams, they have kicked in television screens on daytime interviews, they have sent each other to hospitals, they have sent each other to jail cells, and through every single explosion they have somehow always crawled back to each other. When Blueface got sent away, Chrisean Rock was on every platform crying about him. When Blueface got released, Chrisean Rock was the first face waiting outside those gates. Meanwhile Blueface had a whole other family situation with Jaden Alexis and their child Javon, and Jaden Alexis has spent the entire relationship trying to hold that home together while Chrisean Rock kept blowing dynamite through the front door. That was the setup. That was the domestic war zone Ronnie Doe walked into. Ronnie Doe entered the story as a man who genuinely believed he could be the father of Chrisean Rock's son. He was on the internet claiming Chrisean Jr. was his baby. He was pulling up on Chrisean Rock in public. He was demanding a paternity test. He was doing it loudly, he was doing it aggressively, he was doing it in a way that embarrassed Chrisean Rock on a national stage, and he was doing it right in front of Blueface's audience. To a woman like Chrisean Rock, who has built her entire brand around being the ride-or-die #1 wife-in-waiting for Blueface, that kind of public claim was more than an insult. It was an existential threat. It threatened her narrative, it threatened her positioning, it threatened her stranglehold on Blueface's attention, and it threatened the myth she had spent years constructing. Then Ronnie Doe was scheduled for the courtroom. Then Ronnie Doe was found dead. Then the fake paternity paper came out. That is the sequence. That is the timeline. That is what the Baltimore source is refusing to spell out on camera but is heavily implying with every pause and every look. I want to play you the mental audio again of what that source said, because the language matters. He said that when Ronnie Doe was walking around loud on the internet about Chrisean Rock, when Ronnie Doe was running up on Chrisean Rock in front of cameras, when Ronnie Doe had that paternity test coming up, and it was all playing out publicly, the next thing anybody heard was pow pow pow, and there was no paternity test anymore. That is the exact rhythm he used. That is the exact language he chose. That is not a man speculating. That is a man who has been in those Baltimore streets long enough to recognize the shape of a story he has seen before, and he is telling you, without telling you, that the people we know are the people responsible. Rest in peace to Ronnie Doe. Justice for Ronnie Doe. And I want everyone in this comment section to say his name out loud tonight, because his family has not stopped fighting. His family has not stopped asking questions. His family has not accepted the version of events that Chrisean Rock is trying to sell to the internet, and they never will. Detective work is happening quietly behind the scenes. A relative of Ronnie Doe, a man named Quayle, went public months back and said a detective personally came to his door asking questions about Chrisean Rock's involvement, and then Quayle went silent. Quayle has not touched social media in a long time. Quayle was almost certainly instructed by law enforcement to stop broadcasting details, because when a detective is knocking on doors that means a case is not cold, that means a case is warming up, and that means somebody, somewhere, is about to be asked to explain themselves under oath. Now let's talk about what is happening in Miami this weekend, because this is where Chrisean Rock's behavior stops looking like grief and starts looking like something else entirely. Chrisean Rock was allegedly out there training, supposedly focused on her boxing career, supposedly in camp preparing for her next fight. But the footage does not match the story the footage was supposed to tell. Blueface was in Miami with her. Blueface was in her hotel room. Blueface was in her car. Blueface was in the background of her workout clips even when she thought the cameras were off. And Chrisean Rock, being Chrisean Rock, could not help herself. She did what she always does when she gets close enough to Blueface to smell victory. She reached for the phone. She reached for the narrative. She reached for the wheel. Here is what she did, and I want you to pay attention because this is the level of manipulation we are dealing with. Chrisean Rock got hold of Blueface's own Instagram account while he was not paying attention, and she posted a picture of the baby with the caption "My son." She posted it from his account. She wanted the entire internet to wake up and think Blueface had finally cracked, finally surrendered, finally claimed Chrisean Jr. as his biological child. That post went up. That post lit the timeline on fire. That post was screenshotted 1,000 times before it disappeared. Because the moment Blueface realized what she had done, the moment he saw his own name attached to a claim he has publicly denied on record, that post came down. And it did not come down alone. Chrisean Rock also erased Blueface's original profile picture, which had been an ultrasound image of him and Jaden Alexis's baby. She wiped it. She replaced it. She rewrote his page to match the fantasy in her head. She even deleted a paternity photo shoot that Blueface had posted with Jaden Alexis and their son Javon. She scrubbed the man's own page to erase the mother of his acknowledged child. That is not a woman in love. That is a woman running a psychological operation. And this is where the whole picture starts to come into focus, because when you line up Chrisean Rock's behavior with Ronnie Doe, with Jaden Alexis, with the fake paternity paper, with the Miami hotel invasion, with the Instagram takeover, you start to see a single unified strategy. Chrisean Rock does not want a healthy relationship. Chrisean Rock does not want peace. Chrisean Rock wants total narrative control. Chrisean Rock wants every rival woman erased, every rival man neutralized, every alternative story suppressed, and every camera pointed at the version of the world she has decided is real. That is not obsession. That is not just jealousy. That is authorship. That is a woman writing a screenplay in real time with real people as the cast, and anyone who tries to rewrite her draft has a very short shelf life in her orbit. Blueface knows all of this. That is the part that makes me want to shake him through the screen. Blueface has said out of his own mouth that Chrisean Rock is dangerous. Blueface has said out of his own mouth that Chrisean Rock does not have anything to lose. Blueface has watched Chrisean Rock destroy hotel rooms, jump on stage during other women's performances, key cars in parking lots, and pull up on his mother in the middle of a live stream. Blueface has been through the fire with this woman more times than I can count, and every single time he says he is done, every single time he swears to his supporters that he is walking away for good, he ends up right back in Miami, right back in her hotel room, right back on her Instagram grid getting his profile picture rearranged like a museum exhibit. Why does he keep going back? Blueface says he loves her, and I actually believe him, because pain and love get tangled together in relationships like this until nobody involved can tell them apart anymore. But love is not enough of a reason to keep walking back into a house you already know is on fire. Blueface has been warned, and I mean warned in every direction, by his mother, by his fans, by his business associates, by public commentators like myself, by his own experience, that Chrisean Rock is a woman who has demonstrated on multiple occasions that when she wants something she will go to lengths that most people cannot even fathom. And the man who was supposed to prove she went to those lengths, the man who was standing between her and total narrative control, was Ronnie Doe. And Ronnie Doe is not here anymore. Let me pause and let that settle, because sometimes the loudest sentence in a story is the quietest one. Ronnie Doe is not here anymore. The paternity test is not happening anymore. The public claim from a rival father is not being pressed anymore. And the woman who had the single largest motive to make all of that inconvenience disappear is now in Miami with Blueface, using Blueface's phone, posting from Blueface's account, deleting Blueface's photos of his other family, and captioning a baby "My son." If you were writing this story as a Netflix docuseries, you would be told to tone it down because it feels too on the nose. But that is exactly what is happening in front of us, in real time, on the platforms we scroll every day. There are a lot of people right now, especially in Chrisean Rock's fanbase, who will hear this breakdown and immediately jump to the comments to say that I am reaching, that I am speculating, that I am pushing a narrative. So let me be very clear about what I am doing and what I am not doing. I am not saying Chrisean Rock pulled a trigger. I am not saying Chrisean Rock ordered anything. I am not filing charges from this desk. What I am saying is that the pattern of behavior surrounding Ronnie Doe's death, the pattern of behavior surrounding the fake paternity paper, the pattern of behavior surrounding Blueface Instagram takeover, and the pattern of behavior surrounding the Miami trip, all point in a direction that is far more serious than the average celebrity feud, and law enforcement is already treating it that way. That is a fact. Quayle already confirmed on camera that a detective visited him. That is on record. That is not opinion. That is the file being opened. Now let me get into something that a lot of you have been asking me in the comments and in my inbox all week, which is what does this mean for Jaden Alexis, and where does she sit in all of this? Because Jaden Alexis has been the quiet casualty of this entire saga. Jaden Alexis is the mother of Blueface's acknowledged son, Javon. Jaden Alexis is the woman who was engaged to Blueface, who built a music career on Blueface's label, who moved her entire life around Blueface's vision, and who has watched Chrisean Rock intrude on every corner of that life for years. Jaden Alexis has taken shots on the internet, she has taken shots in person, she has taken shots to her music, she has taken shots to her image, and through most of it she has stayed relatively composed, which in this world is close to superhuman. And now the man she built a family with is out in Miami letting Chrisean Rock rewrite his social media in real time. Jaden Alexis has to be watching this. There is no way she is not. Her supporters flooded her comments section this week begging her to say something, begging her to react, begging her to finally put her foot down. And so far she has stayed silent, which is either a sign of strategic patience or a sign that she has genuinely reached the end of what she can absorb. I have said this many times on this channel, and I will say it again tonight. Jaden Alexis has options. Jaden Alexis has a support system. Jaden Alexis has a career that can absolutely survive without Blueface's brand attached to it. And if there was ever a moment for her to reclaim her voice, this weekend in Miami was the flare in the sky. Whether she takes that moment or lets it pass is entirely up to her, but the internet is watching, and the internet has already picked its side. Meanwhile Chrisean Rock is doing what Chrisean Rock always does when she feels the walls closing in, which is escalate. She has been going harder on live streams. She has been posting more cryptic captions. She has been dropping little breadcrumbs about her son, about her fights, about her boxing career, about her spiritual journey, about her healing, about her devotion, about her transformation. But if you watch closely, none of that language ever touches Ronnie Doe. None of that language ever addresses the fake paternity paper. None of that language ever acknowledges that a man is dead, that his family is grieving, that a detective is asking questions, and that her name keeps appearing in that conversation. The silence in the specific places matters just as much as the noise in the general places, and Chrisean Rock is being extremely selective about where she is loud and where she is quiet. Blueface is being just as selective, but in a different way. Blueface is being loud where it protects him and quiet where it exposes him. Blueface has been on stream saying he is not the father, saying the DNA test never happened, saying the May 2020 document was a name change filing and not a paternity test, saying he loves his son Javon and Jaden Alexis is the mother of his real family. Those are the sound bites Blueface wants out there. Those are the sound bites that lock down his legal position and clean up his public image. But Blueface has gone dead silent on the Ronnie Doe situation as a whole. Blueface has not posted a condolence. Blueface has not addressed the murder. Blueface has not commented on the timing between the death and the fake paper. Blueface has not said whether he has been contacted by any detective, whether he has any knowledge of the events surrounding Ronnie Doe's final days, or whether he intends to cooperate with any ongoing investigation. That silence is doing a lot of work. I want to walk you through why that silence matters, because a lot of people in the comments underestimate how much information gets communicated when a public figure stops talking. Blueface is a man who talks about everything. Blueface talks about his baby mothers, his fights, his lawsuits, his cases, his money, his cars, his tour dates, his live streams, his drama with other rappers, his opinions on politics, his opinions on sports, his opinions on cereal. Blueface will talk about the weather if you put a microphone in front of him. So when Blueface goes completely, deliberately, surgically silent on one very specific topic, and that topic happens to be the death of a man who was about to expose him and Chrisean Rock through a courtroom paternity test, that silence is not neutral. That silence is a statement. That silence is a strategy. That silence is Blueface lawyers whispering in his ear, and Blueface actually, finally, for once in his life, listening. The Baltimore source who spoke out this week made another comment that I want to circle back to, because I think it has been overlooked in most of the coverage. He said, when asked point-blank whether he thought Chrisean Rock had something to do with Ronnie Doe's death, that he could not speak on it, but if he was to speak on it, it don't look too good. That is not a defense of Chrisean Rock. That is an accusation dressed as a shrug. And then he added the crucial line, that certain people that we all know are involved. Certain people that we all know. Let that phrase sit for a moment. In a Baltimore context, in a music industry context, in a Chrisean Rock context, certain people that we all know is not a phrase you use lightly. It is coded, but it is not vague. Anyone plugged into that circle knows exactly which people he is pointing at, and none of them are strangers. That is why the Ronnie Doe family is not going to let this fade. The family has been on record from day one that the initial narrative Chrisean Rock pushed does not reflect the reality of Ronnie Doe as they knew him. Ronnie Doe was not a random Baltimore hopeful chasing a viral moment. Ronnie Doe was Chrisean Rock's actual ex-boyfriend, with actual receipts, with actual history, with actual friends and cousins and family members who can speak to how long that relationship went on and what came out of it. Ronnie Doe genuinely believed Chrisean Jr. was his son. He did not just claim it to get on the internet. He claimed it because he had reasons, and the courtroom appointment he was heading to was going to be the moment those reasons were finally tested against science. That never happened. That will never happen. And the only way that answer ever comes out now is if a court forces Chrisean Jr. to submit to a comparative DNA test with Ronnie Doe's biological family, which is legally possible, and which the family has openly said they would pursue if the pressure keeps building. Take a second and imagine what that courtroom would look like. Imagine Chrisean Rock walking in with her lawyers. Imagine Ronnie Doe's mother sitting across the aisle. Imagine the media camped outside. Imagine a judge ordering that swab. Imagine those results coming back on a piece of paper that Chrisean Rock cannot recaption on Instagram, cannot rebrand on Zeus, cannot rewrite in the middle of a live stream. Imagine the moment the internet finds out, on a document nobody can fake, whether Ronnie Doe was in fact the biological father of Chrisean Jr. That is the scenario Chrisean Rock has spent the last year trying to prevent, and that is the scenario Ronnie Doe's family is quietly moving toward with every conversation they have with attorneys and with investigators. Now I want to zoom back out and give you my take on where all of this is heading, because I have been covering Chrisean Rock and Blueface long enough to see the patterns, and this feels different. This feels like the story is finally reaching the part where the entertainment layer peels back and the criminal layer takes over. For years these two have been able to hide behind the label of reality TV chaos. Every brawl was content. Every arrest was content. Every scandal was content. And Zeus made money, and Chrisean Rock made money, and Blueface made money, and the audience got its weekly dose of dysfunction. But murder is not content. Murder is not a Zeus episode. Murder is not something you monetize with a merch drop and a diss track. Murder is a case, and cases have discovery, and discovery has receipts, and receipts do not care about your fanbase. That is the wall Blueface and Chrisean Rock are walking toward whether they realize it or not. And there is one particular version of this ending that keeps me up at night as somebody who has watched this saga from the beginning, which is the version where Blueface himself becomes the next collateral casualty. Because think about it. Blueface knows too much. Blueface was the man closest to Chrisean Rock during the exact window Ronnie Doe was being surfaced as a rival father. Blueface was the man Chrisean Rock was trying to protect with that fake paternity paper. Blueface is the man who could, if he wanted to, walk into a room with investigators and offer a version of events that nobody else can offer. And Blueface is also the man who cannot seem to physically separate himself from Chrisean Rock long enough to let his own instincts breathe. If law enforcement ever leans on Blueface, and Blueface gets scared enough to talk, that becomes a very dangerous moment for the person on the other side of his testimony. And history has told us, over and over, what happens to people who become inconvenient in situations like this. I am not the first person to say this, and I will not be the last. Blueface's own family has said it to him. Blueface's own friends have said it to him. Whack 100 has said it to him. Multiple podcasters, multiple commentators, multiple people from his neighborhood have said it to him. The math on Chrisean Rock, they have all argued, ends in one of two outcomes for Blueface. He ends up in a cell, or he ends up in a casket. Those are the two doors his own circle keeps pointing at. And every time Blueface responds, he says the same thing. He says he loves her. He says she is his soulmate. He says she is his person. He says the outside world does not understand. And then he goes right back into the room where the fire is burning and closes the door behind him. Here is what I want you, as a viewer, to walk away with tonight. Chrisean Rock is not just a chaotic girlfriend. She is not just a jealous ex. She is not just a boxer with anger issues. Chrisean Rock, based on the evidence in public view, is a woman who has demonstrated a willingness to fabricate documents, manipulate platforms, erase rivals from digital spaces, and stand at the center of a timeline in which a man who threatened her narrative wound up dead within hours of the day he was supposed to testify against her in a court-adjacent capacity. That is not a girlfriend. That is a case file waiting to be built. And the people investigating that case file are not doing so on Instagram Live. They are doing so quietly, methodically, with subpoenas and witnesses and phone records and location data. And when that file is ready, no fake paternity paper is going to make it go away. Before I get to the closing update that I promised at the top of this video, I want to hear from you in the comments section, because I already know this one is going to divide the room. Do you believe Chrisean Rock is involved in what happened to Ronnie Doe, even indirectly? Do you believe Blueface knows more than he is letting on? Do you believe Jaden Alexis will finally speak up this week? And most importantly, do you believe Ronnie Doe's family will ever get the closure they deserve? Drop your answer below. Type the number 1 if you think Chrisean Rock knows exactly what happened. Type the number 2 if you think Blueface will eventually break his silence. Type the number 3 if you think Jaden Alexis will drop a diss record before the end of the summer. Type the number 4 if you think this whole story is going to be forgotten in 6 months like every other Blueface and Chrisean Rock cycle. Whichever number you type, I read every single one, and the top comment in this section is getting pinned tomorrow. Now let me get you the update I promised, because I have been holding it back on purpose to make sure you were locked in for the full context. This past week, without much noise, without a press release, without a splashy headline, a member of Ronnie Doe's extended family reached out to a Baltimore-based legal advocacy group that specializes in cases involving young men whose deaths were undercharged, mislabeled, or prematurely closed by the local system. That group has now, according to 2 independent sources I trust in that city, agreed to look at Ronnie Doe's file. They are not law enforcement. They cannot make arrests. But they can review the evidence, they can pressure the department, they can raise the profile of the case with elected officials, and they can force reporters at legitimate outlets to start asking the questions that nobody in celebrity gossip is willing to touch. That is the domino that is about to fall. That is the shift that changes everything. Because once Ronnie Doe's story leaves the world of YouTube commentary and enters the world of legitimate legal journalism, Chrisean Rock and Blueface are no longer dealing with an audience. They are dealing with a paper trail. And a paper trail does not blink when Chrisean Rock cries on live. A paper trail does not care when Blueface freestyles about his innocence. A paper trail does what paper trails always do, which is slowly, quietly, undeniably tell the truth. That is the update. That is the piece I have not seen anybody else on this side of the internet report yet, and that is why I asked you to stay all the way to the end. Because if any of you follow local Baltimore news over the next few weeks, you are going to see this story re-emerge in outlets you would not expect, framed in language you would not expect, and the celebrity element will be treated as secondary to the criminal element. That is when the temperature really rises. That is when Chrisean Rock and Blueface can no longer stay in the Miami hotel room pretending everything is fine. That is when the phone rings. To Ronnie Doe's mother, to Ronnie Doe's siblings, to Ronnie Doe's cousins, to Ronnie Doe's day one friends who have been standing in silence while the internet has been laughing at your loved one's story, I see you, and this platform sees you, and this comment section sees you. Ronnie Doe was a young man with a name, with a face, with a family, with hopes, with regrets, with a whole life that got cut short before he ever got to defend himself against a woman who was determined to erase him from the record. He deserved the courtroom. He deserved the DNA test. He deserved the answer. And whether Chrisean Jr. is or is not his biological son, Ronnie Doe deserved the dignity of finding out with his own eyes. That dignity was taken from him. And the very least this platform can do is refuse to let his name fade until the people responsible are looked in the face. If you made it to this point in the video, do me one favor before you click away. Say his name in the comments section. Just his name. Ronnie Doe. Not a paragraph. Not an argument. Not a debate. Just his name. Because names matter, and names have weight, and when a name is repeated enough times in enough places, it becomes impossible to bury. Chrisean Rock tried to bury Ronnie Doe with a piece of paper. Blueface has tried to bury Ronnie Doe with silence. The Miami hotel weekend was another attempt to bury Ronnie Doe underneath a new wave of drama. But we are not going to let him be buried on this channel. Not tonight. Not next week. Not next month. Not until his family gets the answer they deserve. I am going to keep tracking every piece of this story as it develops. I am going to keep watching Quayle's socials for the next update. I am going to keep watching Blueface streams for the next slip. I am going to keep watching Chrisean Rock's live sessions for the next contradiction. I am going to keep watching Jaden Alexis's page for the moment she finally speaks. I am going to keep watching that Baltimore legal group's public filings. And every time something moves, I am going to be right back on this couch with the update, because you deserve to know, and Ronnie Doe deserves to be remembered. Hit that like button if this breakdown gave you something you had not heard anywhere else. Hit that subscribe button if you are not already part of this family, because we are cooking every single night, and there is a whole new video coming tomorrow that follows directly from this one. Turn on your notifications, because when the Baltimore legal group makes its first public move, I want you to be the first person in your circle who can pull up the receipts. Tag somebody in the comments who has been sleeping on this story. Tag somebody in the comments who still thinks Chrisean Rock is the victim. Tag somebody in the comments who has been asking you what is going on with Blueface these days. Bring them into this room. Let them see for themselves. And to Ronnie Doe, one more time, from this platform to wherever you are, rest easy. Your name is not going anywhere. Your story is not closing. Your family is not stopping. And the truth, however long it takes, is going to catch up to the people who thought they could outrun it. Chrisean Rock is going to have to answer for the paper. Blueface is going to have to answer for the silence. The Baltimore streets are going to have to answer for their part. And when all of that answering is finally done, we will be right back here to talk about it, together, out loud, in front of everybody. Until then, this has been your breakdown, this has been your update, and this has been the real story behind the story. Y'all already know how we do this. Y'all already know why we do this. And y'all already know I would not waste your time with a rumor. So take care of yourselves, take care of the people around you, keep your eyes on that Baltimore feed, and I will see every single one of you in the very next one. Peace, love, and justice for Ronnie Doe. Always. One more thing before I sign off, because a few of you in the chat during the premiere run tonight kept asking me about the timeline of Chrisean Rock's own words on this subject, and I do not want to leave that stone unturned. Chrisean Rock has, on more than one occasion, referred to Ronnie Doe using language that any body language analyst would flag as inconsistent. On some streams Chrisean Rock has spoken about Ronnie Doe with a kind of dismissive shrug, like he was a stranger who wandered into her orbit. On other streams Chrisean Rock has spoken about Ronnie Doe with a sudden, jagged emotional spike that does not fit the story of a woman who barely knew him. That inconsistency matters. That inconsistency is exactly the kind of red flag that trained investigators look for when they are trying to determine whether a subject is lying about the depth of a prior relationship. And when you place that inconsistency next to the fake paternity paper, next to the Miami weekend, next to the Instagram account takeover, the shape of the picture only gets sharper, not softer. I also want to acknowledge the people in this comments section who have been holding the line on this story for months while other channels moved on. You are the reason this platform can keep pressing. You are the reason the algorithm keeps surfacing Ronnie Doe's name to new viewers. Stories die because audiences let them die, and this audience has decided this story is not dying. That is what real accountability journalism looks like in 2026, and it starts right here, tonight. So one final call to action. Share this video with somebody who thinks Chrisean Rock is misunderstood. Share it with somebody who still defends Blueface. Share it with somebody who never heard the name Ronnie Doe until tonight. Then come back tomorrow, because the next update is already forming, and when it drops, I want you in the front row. Justice for Ronnie Doe. Justice for his family. And real accountability for anybody whose fingerprints are on that timeline.